Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Frankie Corrado. We got Herm Edwards coming up here in a moment. The NFL preseason continuing. Get into a number of things with Herm as a former coach, as a former player. We got Week 10 in the CFL started last night with some controversy in overtime where, they go to, Command Central to look at because they review turnovers and they find a roughing the passer, which I thought I hate review. I'm not going to yell and scream about it again. I've been doing it for years. But the idea of going to review and then finding an infraction that you didn't see live that completely alters the game. I mean, the Riders had that game. It was over. They created a turnover in overtime. It's done. They were going to win. And they end up not winning in the end. They end up tying the game. But I hate instant replay, man.
I know.
I really do hate it. I hate
what you
reviews.
think of the Hawkeye in the NFL game last night? Did you catch that? Where
I didn't see enough of it. No, I know they're trying to. It took a while though, didn't it, for them to figure out the first down and all that?
Okay, so that was the issue last night. It's 4th and inches, let's say, and they go to the Hawkeye, and for those that don't know, the Hawkeye is like the tennis, where you can tell exactly where the ball was in or out on the line. And I guess this is what they want to do to help determine first downs. I actually don't know, Hayes, if this is like implemented or if they're just trying it out throughout the preseason. But they went to it. It took too long. And the guys calling the game said, well, if this is going to take this long, let's just bring the chains out. Like, what are we doing here? And then finally they did it. It wasn't a first down, but I don't know. It's another thing that's probably going to slow it down if they can't find a way to get to it quicker. Like, tennis really has it mastered, where it's like, let's go to it, boom, it's done, we know, move on.
Yeah, see, that's what's coming, and I understand that. Like, I yell and scream about human element, and I more from an entertainment standpoint, also from a time consumption standpoint. I'm just, I want it to continue and move, and we've relied on refs in the human senses for a long time, and it's gotten us here, and it's done pretty well. Okay, but I also understand I'm fighting a battle I'm not going to win. Like, instant replay and review and all that, it's a part of the process, and technology's here, and it's only going to improve. And if it gets to that point with scenarios like this, where it is black or white, that's what's coming with robotic umps in baseball. Okay, fine. Get rid of some of the personalities. Some of the things that really bring fans together is their hatred of umpires. I don't think we realize that once the umps are out, we're not going to have that part of the game to talk about and to chirp about and, kind of come together like a kumbaya. Even though you're a Yankee fan, you and I can both accept Angel Hernandez is the worst. So let's at least, come to terms on that. But I get it. If you set, it's black or white. Did he touch the bag or not? Was it a strike or not? The same thing here. Was it a first? Did the ball cross the line or not? Okay. As long as it's quick. To your point, like if it gets to a point where they know it immediately, like in tennis, all right, go ahead. Like implement it, do your thing, and move on. But it's when you start reviewing penalties, holding, roughing the passer, where it's subject, goaltender interference. One night they call it goaltender interference, the next they say it's not. That's the kind of stuff that will always be stupid. Technology cannot help us from that.
Because you're just gray area, man.
It's a gray area, and it's still a subjective call. Someone's still got to review it and make a decision on that. Review's never going to help with that, ever.
Dude, we could get 10 people in a room, and we could show them all the same clip. And you know what? 6 people will say it is goaltender interference. 4 people will say it's not. Like, it's not a definitive thing. So that's always going to be an issue, and that's why you can't replace the human element, to borrow your term. Like, you still need to have it. But I guess where I have a hard time with is, why are we wanting to turn a 3-hour event into a 3-hour and 15 or 3-hour and 30-minute event? Like, it feels like it's long enough as it is. And baseball has done a great job of, getting their games cut down. I think that's been really good and wildly successful. The other thing, in baseball, you have certain umpires where what kind of game you're going to get. Like it's Angel Hernandez is going to be bad, or certain guys, they might call things a certain way. There's other sports where You don't have that. In hockey, I feel like we used to have that where, Koharski's reffing tonight. Oh, okay, you got to lay off this or you got to lay off that. Like everyone's it's very uniform in other sports, whereas baseball, you still have that, discrepancy between some umpires.
Yeah, they're more public figures, the umpires in baseball, where hockey did that intentionally. They got away from it. They took the names off the back, and they don't want fans to know who the refs are. And there are some still that people know, that
here in Toronto, especially. Yeah,
definitely here in Toronto. And the same thing would apply with certain refs in the NFL. But a lot of the line judges, people don't know who that is, right? Who the linesmen are in the NHL, don't know who that is. But yeah, again, black or white calls, fine. Technology, if you can get it and it's going to work and it's going to be quick, go for it by all means. But
I'm curious too, Hayes, as to how many times we go to the Hawkeye, and compared to if you moved the chains, what the discrepancy would have been, between the two, because the Hawkeye is going to be exact. It has to be.
The ball's got a chip in it, right? You got to know where the ball got to.
That's the technology. It's exact. How bad was it with the chains that, we had to go to this? Or how different would it be if you had the same play, you brought the chains out, you did the Hawkeye? How different is it?
Well, I would think over time you'd find a lot of examples where they got it wrong. Because I think on any given day, any given week in the NFL season you watch, you're like, that's a bad placement. You know what I mean? And you can challenge that, but if you're out of challenges, you're like, how did they not see that the ball should have been a half yard further than they actually placed it? And then they bring the chains out, and they're like, they give it one of these, and they're like, it's 2 or 3 inches. You're like, well, it's because it was a bad placement. It should have been a first down, where the Hawkeye technology, I believe at some point, will get rid of that effectively. You won't need refs to do anything. It'll just be, where did the ball land? That's where it was. Okay, that's where the next play is going to be. Here's a longtime NFLer, player, head coach, ESPN football analyst joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Herm Edwards. Herm, how do you feel about technology in the sport of football in the NFL? Where are you at with this?
Well, eventually the robots will play the game too. But, yeah, I think anytime it helps the game, obviously, that's important. Because all these games, when you think about it, in the NFL, for the most part, they're never blowouts. They're between 10 and 7-point spreads for the most part. A lot of close games, and in certain situations, obviously, a bad spot, bad call can affect the outcome of the game. So you want to make sure you get that right. And I think the thing that's pushing it all, and we I hate to say this, but it's betting. I mean, it's betting. That's what's pushing all this technology, in my opinion. Because there's so much out there as far as people betting on football and on games.
When you look back to your days coaching, how many times do you think you had a bad spot, and what would you do about it? Are you trying to get someone's attention? I don't know. How often would that happen for you?
I've done it long enough as a player and as a coach. You move on. You can't make a big deal out of it. Once they make a decision, they spot it, and you got to go. Sometimes it ends up being right for you. Sometimes not so much. But you hate for it to be in a tight ball game, right? Where the game's really close, because that's hard to swallow. But these officials have a hard job. The game is moving very fast, and it's a more wide open game than it was 20 years ago. These offenses attack the whole field. The players are bigger, faster, stronger. The ball's in the air a lot. It's a different game than it was 20 years ago.
With Herm Edwards, I'm seeing Dak Prescott not practicing due to ankle soreness. No significant issue there. He'll be fine come week 1. I'm not sure he was going to play in the preseason anyway. But, the quarterback of the Cowboys, who's got 1 year left on his deal, it's going to be loud. And, what have you done for me lately? The last time we saw him play was against the Packers in that wild card game, and it was ugly for Dak and the Cowboys. How much pressure do you think is on Dak this year? In terms of performance, in terms of making money, staying with the Cowboys? What does he have to do this year to secure all that?
Well, I think all those guys, if you're Jerry Jones, you're looking at a team that basically in the last 3 seasons, they've won 36 games, as much as the Kansas City Chiefs have. The Kansas City Chiefs have held up trophies. Dak Prescott's stats, in playoff competition. He's been in 7 games. He's 2-5. 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, been sacked 15 times. There are other big stars. C.D. Lamb, he's holding out. He wants a lot of money too. Well, his playoff performance, he's played in 4 playoff games. He has 24 catches and 1 touchdown. So if you're Jerry Jones, the question you have to ask yourself is this. I'm paying all these players. I've always paid my players. We seem to get in the playoffs, but we don't win. We get eliminated, right? And that's the Cowboys' history. All of a sudden, Dak Prescott is kind of looking like Tony Romo. Right? That's what Jerry's thinking.
Yep.
And Jerry's saying, hey, I'm paying all these stars, but we have fast exits when we get into the playoffs. I mean, it's been 29 years since they held up the trophy now. If you want to really call it like see it,
Yeah.
So what does he do about it? Like, Jerry Jones is he's in front of the microphones and he's saying, I don't have a sense of urgency to get the C.D. Lamb contract done, and that's fine. And then C.D. Lamb's on Twitter. He's laughing out loud at that. Like, so what are you going to do? You're just going to let him play and kick the can down the road, or are you going to make, seismic changes?
I think if you're Jerry, you're saying, you know what? I'm gonna let these guys come in here, let them play on their contracts, and if they win, I'll pay them. And if not, they go somewhere else, and I'll start over. I'll go get a new quarterback, and I'll go get another receiver, and I'm just talking. I don't know if that's Jerry Jones thinking that, because you never know what Jerry's thinking, right? So I'm not going to try to talk with Jerry Jones, but I'm saying that when I look at it from afar, I'm saying if Jerry Jones is thinking, in this manner, it's kind of interesting because he's not getting what he wants. You watch the Olympics, the USA basketball team, in a big game, to stay in the hunt to win a gold medal. They were down 17 points, and guess who showed up? The Stars. And they played and brought them back. That's what you have to do when you get in playoff competition. Your stars have to play well. That's their stage. That's when they have to play well because you're in the tournament. And in football, you're one and done. So if you're Jerry Jones, it's been 29 years. He's like, hey, man, I get in the tournament, but I'm trying to hold up a trophy.
Yeah, and yet if you look around the league, there's some other teams out there it's been even longer, or it's never happened. And obviously up here, we're real close with the Buffalo Bills, tons of Bills fans up here in Toronto, man. And, they've been dominating the AFC East or close to it for the last 4 years. They've won the East. They kind of stole the division from Miami last year. They had it. They had it against the Chiefs at home, and it got away from them.
Yeah, they did.
Now, where are we at with the Bills? Now that Diggs is gone, Gabe Davis, who never really met expectations, but he's moved on. What are you expecting out of the Bills this season?
Well, I think, believe it or not, the Stefon Diggs deal, I think the quarterback's relieved. He was a distraction on the sideline. He was hard to handle, and everybody knew it. I mean, half the game on television when the offense came to the sideline, they were showing Stefon Diggs. He's talking to the head coach. He's talking to the quarterback. I want the ball. I get it. We're trying to get you the ball, man. If you're the play caller, every week you're saying, well, I got to throw him 15 balls at least to make him happy. And so I just think that burden is off the quarterback's plate. This is a team that I think going forward, and it looked like it last year when the coordinator change was done. The run game became more prevalent. That helps the quarterback. That helps the defense. That helps this football team. They're a very talented football team. There's no doubt about it. They will be right in the mix this year. It's a great division. The Jets will be better with Aaron Rodgers, obviously. The Miami Dolphins, we know what they can do. So this division will be very, very interesting. But like you said, they remind you of the old Buffalo Bills teams, that obviously got to a lot of Super Bowls, just couldn't quite get it. And I know the Buffalo fans are probably thinking about that and saying, I would say this, enjoy the ride. You're in the playoffs. You're in the tournament every year. I'm a big fan of the quarterback. I tell them I'm a big fan of this guy. I think he's a really good quarterback. And I think this offense, the change of it will help them. But here again, they've got to go through the team that before it was Captain America and the New England Patriots. Now it's Patrick Mahomes. You got to find a way to beat that guy, right? And sometimes that's the history of when you played quarterback, right? And your team. Who are the team that you're looking at all the time every year? And we've seen this in pro football. We've seen teams go on 5-6 year runs. You're in that conference, and guess what? You got a problem until you can beat those guys. And you're right. The Buffalo Bills had them on the ropes. They should have won that game. We all know it. We all sat there and watched it. I was in studio before the game started. I said, the Bills will win this game. And sure enough, the 2 turnovers, you let them off. And the one thing about the Kansas City Chiefs, when it comes to playoff experience, they have a lot of experience with this football team, and they know how to win in big moments.
You mentioned Stefon Diggs, and, it doesn't sound like Josh Allen is going to miss him very much, but it does sound like the Houston Texans are loving life with him. And, with the way things kind of went in Buffalo, I wonder, a young quarterback and CJ Stroud there, like how much of a burden is it going to be for him now to make sure he gets Diggs with all those receptions? Because that was a great first season for Stroud, and the Texans, I think, exceeded a lot of expectations. Does this make it more likely or less likely that CJ Stroud, even takes his game to another level?
Well, I'm hoping he takes it to another level because you always want good quarterback play, and he was really good. I mean, a rookie quarterback, 23 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. And that's what you always worry about, the young quarterbacks, is that will they turn the ball over, and he didn't do that. They caught everybody by surprise, and now the expectations are out of the roof for these guys. But I think if you're CJ Stroud, the first call you made is you call Josh Allen. And you ask him, okay, talk to me about Stefon. How do I handle it when the game starts? When the lights come on and the people go in the stadium and you smell the popcorn, how do I handle this guy on the sideline? That's a conversation that C.J. Stroud has to have with Josh Allen, because that's going to be important going forward, because you've never played a real game with this guy. Practice is fine, preseason's fine. I'm talking about when they kick the ball off and it counts, I need to have the conversation with Josh Allen to understand how to deal with this guy, because that's going to be your job, whether you like it or not. Besides being the quarterback, how do I handle this guy?
Ooh, man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that call to see what Josh Allen would say, because they're in the same conference, Herm. Like they could meet each other in the playoffs.
But you know what? But players, players are players don't pull against each other. That's one thing I know about the league, and I played in the league a long time. You want to compete against good players. That's the fun of it all. It really is. It's challenging. And the quarterbacks got they got a tight union, believe it or not. They talk.
Yeah.
Them players, the quarterbacks, boy, they are all dialed in. And so that conversation needs to be had. And if I'm the head coach, if I'm DeMeco Ryan, I'm telling the quarterback, if he doesn't know that, call Josh Allen.
I like that idea, man, and I like C.J. Stroud. You talk about a guy who hit the ground running and immediately put his hands up in the AFC that's loaded with stud quarterbacks and said, "I'm here. We're here. DeMeco Ryans. We're here and we're chugging, man." That was mighty impressive. But you mentioned it with the Bills. It's going to apply to Houston. Neither team in the division, but everyone knows the Chiefs are going to be dancing in the end. Like that division in the AFC West, I don't think is very good. I think the Chiefs will cruise to the playoffs, and I don't know who's going to stop them. Like, is it more likely? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like anything else. I've always said this about football, and I say this as a former player. It's not who you play; it's how you play the day you play. That's football. Mm-hmm. It's bottom line. It's how do you play the day you play. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. How are you going to play the day you play? And I think you got to understand, when you play the Kansas City Chiefs, this is a team that has a lot of experience. They know how to win. And if they get you in the fourth quarter when it's tight, you got to be spot on. Because if not, they're going to find a way to win.
And they have 2 years in a row, and yet we've never seen anyone three-peat in the Super Bowl era. So maybe
you're right. Yep, they're chasing history, and they know it. And they're not saying it, but they know it. Those guys know it. The quarterback knows it. They all know it. We got history staring us in the face. Can we do it?
It's a beautiful thing, man. It's football's in the air. It's a great time of year, Herm. It's great catching up with you, man. We appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anytime, man. Thank you.
There's Herm Edwards of ESPN, longtime player, coach, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota, and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, Stefon Diggs. Like I'm fading Diggs, man. I think it's, you look at what he did down the stretch last year. He didn't have a touchdown in his final 5 regular season games, did not have a touchdown in the 2 playoff games. His yards fell off. His receiving numbers fell off. He's 30 now. Down there, Nico Collins, I think, is the man. Like, I think Nico Collins is going to be the number 1 target for CJ Stroud when you consider what they did together last year.
Sure, yeah.
Can Diggs handle that? Not being the alpha dog on the outside? I don't know.
I wonder if Diggs looks at it like, I was just in Buffalo. I was with Josh Allen. Now, I wonder if he looks at it this way. I'm taking a step back. I'm going to Houston, not a team with, championship expectations or aspirations, but I'm the guy that's going to bring you there because I was just a part of a program that was trying to do that. So now it's got to go through me. Like, I think dangerous. I'd be a little worried. Not if I was CJ Stroud, but if I was the organization that has now put, this burden on CJ Stroud. Like, it feels like it's hard enough for young quarterbacks as it is. And, going from a rookie to a sophomore, there's a lot that goes with that. The league figures you out a little bit more. Like, there is some challenges there. Now you're going to add this to his plate. Like, it feels like it could be a little unnecessary for him and a little more of a burden.
Yeah, that is going to be a challenge. Now, there was nothing that was thrown at CJ Stroud last year that threw him off his game, So maybe he's got what it takes to just say, I want the talent around me. Give me the talent. I'll deal with everything else.
Well, and if you put Diggs with Brady, back when Brady was playing, I would say, no problem. Tom's going to have him, whipped into shape, like reined in. It's all good. Everything goes through Tom, but you don't have that kind of clout yet.
Right. That's the scary thing is that Diggs is like, hey, man, I was just with Allen. Now I'm with a young buck, your second year in the league. I know you're great, your rookie season, but listen to me. Like throw the ball to me. Figure this out. That'll be a challenge for Stroud and the whole offensive system, really, the coordinator, the head coach, everyone. Thanks again to Herm. We appreciate that. Steve Phillips still to come as well on Vladdy. 20 straight games with a hit. He was rocking last night, a home run, a triple, his first triple of the season. Single away from a cycle last night. So we'll get into that and more with Steve. We're tracking the Olympic Games, the 4x100 meter. Men's gold earlier this afternoon, just an unbelievable race, unbelievable moment. We'll get back into the greatness of that team. Andre DeGrasse, more hardware at the Olympic Games as he wraps up his Olympics in Paris with a gold medal. So more on that still to come. A little arbitration, OverDrive Arbitration coming up on a Friday. We haven't played that in a while. We got some good ones in the chamber here, so we'll shoot those ones off. And Frankie Corrado's in here. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Mail-in Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. BP serving up fish bowls and ice-cold pints on the patio all summer long, so grab your sunscreen and let's have ourselves a weekend. The Boston Pizza patio is calling. Yes, it is. And I think if you're a Canadian, you're loving the way things are going at the Olympic Games. There's been a lot of really cool stories, and one of the truly unique cool ones took place earlier this afternoon, where the 4x100 meter men's race took place, and sure enough, Canada ends up winning gold in that. It's an elevated event, so to speak. It's one that really creates a lot of buzz, and a lot of people are looking forward to it, and there were the Canadians who really dominated Frankie from pillar to post. Like they were in the 9th lane. They were in the last lane. They were out in front the whole time. DeGrasse got the baton to close it out. He took off, and the rest is history.
It was perfect, man. It was so clean from start to finish, and you're right. Being out in that far outside lane, I don't think it's necessarily easy to run in that lane. Like, a lot of times you see the gold medal champs or whoever's winning the heat, like, it generally comes from someone in the middle. But in the best part of it, too, I think for a lot of Canadians watching that was watching the Americans botch the baton handoff and puke all over themselves, just leaving the door wide open for Canada, which, to be honest with you, Canada may have won anyways because they were so clean and DeGrasse ran so well that final 100. But the fact that the Americans ended up getting disqualified too, just I think adds a little more juice to it for a lot of people that I guess have that little brother syndrome from everything that happens in the 100%
States. 100% agree with that. Yeah, let's call it what it is. I know people are embarrassed to admit it sometimes. It's great when Canada wins. That's all that matters. It's even better when you beat the Americans. And when the Americans, like you said, puke all over themselves.
And they lose their minds. They lose their minds when Canada beats them. That's that's the crux of it because, I don't know, pick anything that whether it was soccer recently in the Copa America, Canada went further than the U.S. All the U.S. pundits are losing it. Oh, yeah. Anyone but Canada. And then Noah Lyles, we played the audio earlier in the show where, he was, saying who's Canada, who. Meanwhile, Canada just, they just cleaned your clock in the 4x100 meters, and now they got a gold medal. And Andre DeGrasse is, one of the elite runners of the last decade, let's say, internationally. So you should know who they are by now.
If you didn't know, now you know. No question. So unbelievable scene there. And we're tracking what's going on over Paris, and it's almost over, man. Like tomorrow, that's going to be it in terms of the games. And then Sunday, we'll have the closing ceremony. And we had Gord Miller on yesterday. Gord saying that, word's out that Tom Cruise is in Paris working on some stunt because he'll be taking the Olympic flame because it's in L.A. in 2028. So, the French will pass it to the Americans, and I guess Tom Cruise is like the American dignitary that will take that on and bring it back to the States.
Is that supposed to get me excited?
I guess so.
I don't care.
I guess it'll be a Mission Impossible type thing.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll go into some deep dialogue. That would really get people captivated.
Yeah, and he's going to be jumping on a couch somewhere.
He could be doing that. We need Oprah there, though. Oprah has to be there. He jumps on the couch. He gets the torch, brings it back to L.A. That's more fitting. I agree with you. Yeah. All right, you want to fire up the arbitration here? We haven't done this in a while. OverDrive Arbitration. Let's do it.
Now, is that going to be a problem?
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for them. It's outrageous, egregious, preposterous.
OverDrive Arbitration.
I've been wanting a piece of them for years.
You think we got a case?
Your face is my case.
All right, so arbitration is a game that we have not played in quite some time, and the way this works is we're basically having either a player or a team or a fan base step into arbitration, and the arbitrator offers up their ruling. They give you something, but generally in order for you to get something, you got to give something, all right? Very simple stuff. We can all figure this out. You ready to play?
Yeah.
Let's get rocking here. Okay. Sticking with the Olympic theme, Canada basketball steps in, or Canadians, I guess, or Raptors fans maybe, step into arbitration. And Canada basketball is guaranteed a gold medal in 2028. Guaranteed gold medal in L.A. on American soil 2028. But in order for that to happen, the Raptors will not reach the playoffs the rest of the decade. Do you take that, or do you have to leave it and let it play out?
Oh, I think you're going to leave that. I think you're going to leave that. I think if the Raptors could build something like they had, from basically, I don't know what you want to call it, 2010 to 2020, where they were going to the playoffs every single year, where they were winning the division, where it was going to be, sustainable. That long term, I think, will provide more entertainment, more excitement than the one-time 2-week gold medal, even though it is on American soil, everything that goes with that. Just knowing that you're getting the quantity of kicks at the can, I think you would leave it.
Yeah, and the other thing is Canada could get there in 2028 and win it on merit, as opposed to, being guaranteed something here with arbitration. And maybe you get the best of both worlds. They win it anyway, and the Raptors get into the playoffs. But on the flip side of that, it's 24-25 now. We're halfway through the decade. Are we certain the Raptors are going to make the playoffs, in the next 2 or 3 years? I'm not. So do I know they're even going to make the playoffs anyway between now and 2028? I hope so. I'd like to believe so. They've obviously doctored up the playoffs where they've added the 2 wildcard teams, so now it's easier than ever to actually make it. And all you need to be is 10th in the East, and maybe you could classify that as a playoff appearance. I'm actually going to take this because I honestly don't know how much the Raptors are going to be in the playoffs over the next 5 years anyway. Like, I understand that's a recency bias take. I get it. I understand that's coming off last year, and the team that they have on paper right now is not a competitive team. Like, nowhere close to it. I don't think they're a playoff team next year. If they are, they're fighting for 9th or 10th. Maybe they win a wild card game, then lose in the second round of the wild card. Maybe they get in and get spanked by the first seed. But just making the playoffs and then getting dummied by the best teams in the East is not very appealing to me anyway. Where as much as I don't sit here and think constantly about gold medals and the Olympic Games, it's much more about the day-to-day operation for me and talking about. And the Raptors, I'm way more invested in them than the national team. I just don't know if the Raptors are going to do it anyway. Like, if I turn down this, do I know the Raptors are going to make the playoffs? Like, yes, I know this is saying they guaranteed they won't. I don't know when they will. Anyway, with or without a gold medal. So I might as well take something I can guarantee. And the idea of Canada winning gold in basketball, I'm guessing likely against the Americans in LA, that's tough to pass up, man. That is tough to pass up. I'm going to take that deal. I'm going to take that deal. Call me a hater.
No, you're not.
Being
No,
a realist.
I can reason with that.
I think I'm being a realist.
Reason with that. Yep.
All right, the Leafs step into arbitration. The Maple Leafs are guaranteed a berth into at least the second round, minimum, for the length of the Austin Matthews contract, which is 4 more years. His new deal's kicking in. It's a 4-year deal. But what comes with that is Matthews will leave at the end of his deal. Are you taking that in arbitration?
I will take that because at least for the 4 years that you're here with Austin Matthews, you will have A, gotten out of the first round. You will B, have, had a chance to exercise the demons of the second round. And Matthews, I hate to say it, he may leave anyways. Like, that's, always going to be the elephant in the room, because there's probably a reason why or some kind of reason why there's a 4-year deal and not an 8-year deal, just to keep that door open if you want that to be the case. So for the duration of that contract, of course, I would want to make sure I'm guaranteed in the second round. Of course, I don't want Austin Matthews to leave. I don't think he's going to leave. I would hope he's a Leaf for life. Mm-hmm. But there's always a chance. There's always a chance that could happen anyway, so I will take that.
Right. Now, there's a chance, he stays long-term, and if you turn this down, they get to the second round or beyond that anyway. That would obviously be great, but I'm with you. I mean, listen, if after this 4-year deal, Matthews will have been a Leaf for 12 seasons, I think by that point he's going to hold every record. He'll likely be considered the greatest Maple Leaf of all time if he's not already. I don't have him as the greatest Leaf simply because of his own results in the playoffs. I don't think you can be considered the greatest. You can talk about greatest talent ever, greatest goal scorer, of course. I mean, that's not, no one would debate any of that. But, greatest Leaf is all encompassing. There's intangibles that come with that. There's fanfare, there's playoff success. And the fact that he would maybe leave after 12, but this would guarantee multiple playoff runs, like at least into the second round, where at least he can rack up points and rack up somewhat of a run. I think you got to take that, because I think what's happened here with most Leaf fans, and I would put myself in this company, is individually all these players, I'm a big fan of all of them. Like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, they're all really good. They're all great players, very good Leafs. Easy guys to like, they're not jackasses. They're not, they don't do stupid stuff that makes you wonder what the hell are you all about. They all love being Leafs. They represent the city well. There's all these different check boxes that come with these players individually. But I'm beyond the individual stuff. I'm beyond, it's individual over team, core 4 over team, Matthews over team. It's about the team success. Players come and go over lifetimes. And I was a kid, it was Wendell Clark, Doug Gilmour, then it was Sundin and Tucker and all those guys. Then it was Phil, and it was JVR and Boza. Now it's these guys. And guess what? In 10 years, there'll be a different group. And in 20 years, there'll be a different group. And in 30 years, there'll be a different group. But the team is consistent. The logo's consistent. Torontonians are consistent. Leaf fans are consistent. They're here. And it's not about chasing 70 or MVPs or salary cap hits. It's about team success in the playoffs. It's the only thing that matters now. So you're giving me an opportunity to guarantee better playoff success. I'm taking that every time, regardless of what it means for any individual player.
Yeah. That's where you want to be. Like these next 4 years, you want to be playing when it really counts. And that's, basically from the second round on. And I don't know, that at least gives you a chance.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, continuing here, OverDrive Arbitration. Let me move down the list here a little bit, Joe, from the bridge. I'm going to go to a Scotty Scheffler one here, all right? We're playing the role now of Scotty Scheffler, basically. This is role play arbitration. Scotty walks in and is offered the 3 majors he doesn't have, the PGA, the U.S. Open, and the Open Championship, to complete the slam, the career slam. But with that, he will not win another tournament the rest of his career. Nothing else. No other majors, no other elevated events, nothing. But he will be granted the 3 majors he doesn't have, which would put him at 5 majors, 2 Masters, and a career slam. Would you take that, or would you leave it if you're Scotty Scheffler?
Oh, I leave that. I leave that in a big way. I think, Scotty Scheffler is so dominant, so consistent. Like, he is going to get those majors at some point. It feels like it's a formality. Like, if Scotty Scheffler's game didn't fall off already, I don't know how it's going to. Remember when he first kind of came onto the scene and his swing was really goofy? I think, I probably said this. A lot of people may have thought this. Like, there's just no way a guy with a swing like that can win consistently. Like, there's too much going on there. And sure enough, this guy is the most consistent winner that we've seen since Tiger Woods. So Scotty Scheffler is going to get the slam. Part of what Scotty Scheffler's legacy is going to be is exactly what I just talked about, being consistent and winning and staying atop the world golf rankings, and the quantity of tournament wins that go with that. So if I'm Scotty Scheffler, I say keep it. I'll get it anyways, and I'm going to win a bunch of tournaments the rest of my career, and I'm going to go down as one of the most consistent players to ever play the game.
I'm taking this deal if I'm Scotty Scheffler. I'm taking it because everything you said is right about how great of a player he is, how dominant he's been. He's won 2 majors, and it was in the same place. He's won the Masters twice. And until you get that U.S. Open, and he didn't perform well this year at Pinehurst. He barely made the cut, right? In the Open, he was in the hunt. Xander took off on Sunday. He couldn't get it done. And PGA Championship, he got arrested. He got arrested, which threw him off a little bit. Tough bounce for Scotty. I have no doubt that if he turned this down, he will get at least one of those majors, and maybe multiple U.S. Opens. But the career slam is such an amazing accomplishment to be able to sit there on your mantle, have all 4 majors, not at the same time, not a Tiger Slam, but you're doing something that I think like 6 players have ever done, if not less than that. You're talking Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus. Like, how long have we been talking about this with McIlroy, that he's been chasing the slam for a decade? Spieth now chasing the slam. I think he needs the British Open, I believe, is the one he's chasing, or maybe PGA. And he, is he going to get it? I don't know. Would he love it? Of course. And it puts you in such illustrious company if you can find a way to get the career slam. So, does he need another Genesis Open? Does he need another Players? It's great for the paycheck, but he's already made so much money in the last 2 years that he's never going to have to worry about money ever again. And if you win 3 more majors and you get to a slam, you're going to the Hall of Fame. You're on the Ryder Cup team forever. You're the man. What does he need these other tournaments for? Just win the 3 majors.
I'm taking it. You know what? There's good reason for that, for sure. And think about this. Since Tiger kind of stepped out of the world number 1 position, where it was Tiger winning everything, we have had multiple players kind of be the guy. Spieth was the guy. Rory was the guy. I think even at one point you could classify, Phil, Jason Day. All these people took little runs at being the guy that everyone went to beat. Scotty's reign as the guy has lasted longer than all of those guys. Like, we haven't seen anyone kind of hold it the same way Scotty has. So that would kind of lead me to believe that it's for real and it's going to last with him. And at some point he's going to get there and he's going to do it. He's too good not to. But we never have seen, since Tiger's reign, we have never seen anyone really take it and hold it as long as Scotty Scheffler has.
He's the man right now. There's no question. All right, arbitration. Connor McDavid steps in. He is offered a Stanley Cup next season in Edmonton. You got your cup. But what comes with that is you will not make the playoffs again the rest of your career. No more. You can take your cup, but you're never playing another playoff game. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it.
This is so greasy, but what's your
greasy.
call?
It is greasy. I'm going to leave it.
Oh, really?
I'm going to leave it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Call me
Joe
crazy.
Thornton, just keep playing and never win anything? Is that your plan?
I think that's, what is that, the Torts? That's the Torts clip.
That's the
Joe Thornton's
clip.
a great player. Never won anything in this league. That was Torts loved that one. Okay, I'm going to leave it because, okay, Connor McDavid is what now? He's 27? Mm-hmm. Is he 20? Something like that?
I think he'll be turning 28 this year, yep.
Okay, great. He'll have a Stanley Cup. Like, he probably still has 7 to 8 quality years of hockey ahead of him. Maybe even more. Like, who knows? Maybe he's like Sid, and he's playing into his late 30s, early 40s, and he's still one of the better players in the league. I feel like if you were to just take a Stanley Cup and say, check, please, out of here, not making the playoffs anymore, it cheapens that Stanley Cup for me. So that's why I think for McDavid, he leaves it. He says, keep your cup. I'll win one, and I'll keep getting back to the dance because I'm not content with that.
I love that thought, and I agree with that. You have to leave this because it can't just be about one cup if you're a guy like Connor McDavid, right? Like you're chasing, and I don't know if he thinks this way, but I would have to believe most like all-time great players, they do in the offseason. They sit back and think, like, what am I going to accomplish here? How am I going to rank? And he's already played himself into a position where 99% of the players that have played the game are not in his category. Like, they're in his rear view. They're not even, he's not even being compared to them. And that includes, like, great players. It's like we're not comparing you to that great player because you're better. And we all know you're better. So we're talking about a very, very small amount of players that you're in competition for in terms of your greatness and your legacy. And pretty much all of them have multiple cups. Mario Lemieux's got 2, Gretzky's got 4, Sid's got 3. You know, Bobby Orr had a couple, different position, Gordie Howe. You know, that's, if you're talking Marc Messier, if you're talking Guy Lafleur, like that's the group. That's where we are with him. And if you get one, that's an amazing accomplishment. And I do think you have to have perspective in a 32-team league. Like Gordie Howe, there were 5 other teams. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a different world back then. Bobby Orr, there weren't as many teams. All of them. Gretzky, there weren't as many teams. Lemieux, there weren't as many teams. 32 teams, a hard salary cap. It's tougher than ever. And getting one is an incredible accomplishment. But I got to believe he's craving multiple cups. And the idea that you get one and then know, like, that's the end of the road, I don't think you can accept that when you're going to be 28 years old next year when it happens.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm with you, man. McDavid, he's got to have his sights on more than that. And he should. He should have that level of confidence. As heartbreaking as last year was, you get one next year, then who knows? You know, then you're breathing. It's like, all right, we got one. I know how to be a champion now. Let's take it and build on this legacy and build on this resume. There you go. Little OverDrive arbitration. I like it.
You should call it Sell Your Soul. Because that's what it is. It's like, hey, we'll give you this, but you got to sell your soul.
That's kind of what it really is. Like that was the whole meaning of the whole bit, is that like you can see it from both sides, and you got to sell your soul to get something. You want that Stanley Cup? You got to sell your soul. That's what you have to do. You have to be nothing beyond winning that cup,
right?
You know, and yet, you know, I think it's reasonable to look at it both ways with McDavid's situation, Scheffler's, Leaf fans, Canada basketball, the Raptors, etc. All right, Steve Phillips coming up in about 15 minutes on the heater that Vladdy Guerrero Jr. currently is on. What is he seeing out of Vladdy? How did this all come about? 20 straight games with a hit. He went off last night. Guy is a rock star at the plate right now. So that more coming up with Steve. We're tracking beach volleyball. The Brazilians got past our Canadians earlier this afternoon. But that's still a silver in beach volleyball. Just an unbelievable run for the two Canadians, and we'll get you an update on that. Claire Hanna will join us to break down her call of that, what she makes of the event, how she's been experiencing the Olympic Games so far. Maybe we'll sneak in an Ottawa Senators question too with Claire. That's coming up in about 40 minutes. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN Plus. All right, the Jays back in action tonight. Oakland in town. Should be favored to pick up a couple of wins this weekend, right? Got to think so with Oakland in town. And we'll tee that up with Steve Phillips into the next hour. We're tracking again what's going on at the Olympic Games today. Clara Hanna will join us into the next hour, and we'll get back into the 4x100 meter and maybe play the audio. We should play Zach Hyman's speech, in the room after Game 7 against Florida, where this video has gone viral now, courtesy of the Oilers app. And he gives a pretty hearty speech in there. And it's interesting that he's the one talking, and I'm sure there may have been other guys talking that we just didn't see video of. But Hyman stepped up, and we'll play that. We'll get into it into the final hour. Frankie's in here. I'm Brian Hayes. Final hour for the week. Overdrive continues. Up next, TSN 1050 and on TSN Plus.